Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Get Unstuck series episode. I do have to apologise that I am later than originally advertised. Unfortunately, I had an unexpected meeting at 12:15, so I had to move the live slot. So if you are joining me live, I'm very grateful that you've moved your time, so please do say hello. And if you're catching up on replay, then hello too. So normally all my lives on LinkedIn, YouTube, and in my Facebook group, the Love What You Do Lounge, are at 12:15 on Wednesdays, and that will be the case. It was just unfortunately today I couldn't make that, and I've literally just walked in the door and jumped on, and then StreamYard decided to do an update. So it was all a little bit frustrating, but here we are. So putting all of that aside, I am Sarah Archer. I am a career and leadership coach working with senior women to create the careers that give them fulfillment, challenge, success on their terms without selling out or burning out. And the Get Unstuck series is designed to give you practical ideas, inspiration, motivation for different aspects of your career. And I have lots and lots of different topics that I've covered and I will be covering, but I'd love to hear from you. If you've got a topic for me that you'd like me to cover, then please just send me a message or drop something in the comments, and I will do that for you. And I've just seen Mihaela is on. Hello, Mihaela, thank you for joining me. I'm glad you waited for today's session. And yeah, so if you're here, please do say hello. If you've got questions about the topic today, obviously pop them into the chat and I will answer them. Or if you are watching on replay and you've got a question, tag me in and I will come back and answer your question for you. And today's topic, which is all about how to be visible when you're not in the office, I think is probably overdue, because the majority of us are working either hybrid, so sometime in the office and sometime at home, fully remote, and some people are fully in the office. So it's definitely still a mix, but obviously a lot of people like the fact that they can work from home. And there are pros and cons to all the different options, aren't there? Because obviously if you are working more from home than you're in the office, then the whole visibility piece and being seen as committed, as engaged, and as kind of productive means you have to work a bit harder at it if you're not in the office, or if you want to make sure you're in line for promotion, or positioning to have opportunities that you really want to take up, then obviously if you're not in the office or only partly in the office, you're going to have to think more strategically about how you make sure that those things are still there for you. And some organizations, when I was reading up about this topic in preparation for today, are striving for presence equity, which I thought was a really interesting concept. I hadn't heard of presence equity before, where they're seeking to value employees and provide opportunities regardless of where they work or how often they're in the office, which I think is a really, fantastic thing to be building into their kind of corporate values, that whole concept of presence equity. But even so, it's still hard to stay on people's radar, because there are things that we are all subject to, things like confirmation bias, recency error, and proximity, that play into how we make decisions, how we interpret other people's behaviour, and that those things can be more powerful when you're not in the office. So let me just explain what they are. So confirmation bias is where you seek out data which agrees with your current views. So obviously, if you are working remotely, but you're demonstrating engagement or not demonstrating engagement, that is going to reinforce other people's perceptions of your commitment. So that kind of confirmation bias, they will look at the evidence to support their existing view of you. So we have to kind of be able to combat that. We also have to take into account recency error, which is where people remember better, quite obviously, most recent experiences, which means that obviously, if they've seen you recently, then you're going to be more top of mind. You're going to be on their radar because naturally people remember things that have happened more recently. So if they just happen to bump into somebody at the water cooler or in the corridor, and then they've got a project they're thinking about, that person's going to be more top of mind than if you have been on a Zoom call with them a couple of days ago. So we have to be able to kind of combat that as well. And then proximity, sociologically speaking, is one of the kind of primary determinants of our relationships. So by having people around us that we're familiar with, that's those people we choose to build more stronger relationships with. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it just means that you have to be, as I often say to people, really intentional about your visibility and your visibility strategy so that you are combating some of these in the best way that you can. But on the positive side, a recent study has shown that people who are intentional about their visibility also feel that they have better experiences. So they have more satisfaction with their levels of productivity, they have more engagement and job security, and they're less likely to suffer from burnout or feel lonely. So by having a visibility strategy for yourself, it's not just about getting promotion or getting those opportunities. It's also about getting more enjoyment in your job, feeling more connected with your colleagues and your organisation, and feeling more satisfaction and less likelihood of feeling stressed that you're going to, burn out or feel lonely and isolated. So so there's real kind of benefits to you from lots of reasons of staying visible. So while it does take extra effort, it will pay off, because also managers in the same report, and I will put a link into that report later, had more of a positive impression of employers who were making an effort and being seen to make an effort to stay in touch. They were perceived as more motivated, more engaged, and more productive. Because let's face it, if there's a vacuum of communication, we all make assumptions about what's going on, don't we? So it's about filling that vacuum actively and thinking about how you want to be perceived. It comes back to kind of thinking about your personal brand. And if you missed my live on personal brand, you can catch up with that one. So Mahela's saying, especially when you requested something in the past to be counted for when new opportunities arrive. Oh, sorry, I think I've missed that first question. How often should you engage to maintain a good working relationship? Great question, Mahela, and I'm about to come on to that. So what we want to think about is making sure you're clear about who you want to be visible to, so that you can be more targeted, because obviously it takes energy, and obviously your manager is definitely the primary person you want to be visible to, but you're also going to think about your team, your peers, and probably senior leaders as well, depending on where you are in the organisation. And certainly with your manager, you want to be thinking about some kind of weekly interaction with them where you can give them an update, you can alert them to issues, you can present ideas. So I would say like a Monday or a Friday catch up with them, which ideally would be online, or when you are actually going into the office if you're working hybrid. And if you can't, for some reason, have that face-to-face catch-up, that you're giving them an email update or a message update in some way, so that they are, constantly aware of what's going on. But it's also thinking about what you're updating them about, because often we just think, okay, just tell them what I've delivered, so what's the outcomes. But actually what can be really useful is telling them some of the challenges or the complexity about how you've got to that outcome. Because if you just tell them, oh yeah, I delivered that project, or that thing went really well with that client, but you're not talking through what some of those challenges might have been, they're not going to see your problem solving ability, they're not going to see your influencing or your negotiating ability, they're not going to see necessarily all the skills that you've used, which are more important to showcase to them if you're not physically in the office with them, where they can hear you on the phone to that difficult client, or you've popped into their office to tell them about some problem that you've had on the project that you've then solved. So it's not just giving them, I've done this, this, and this. You're actually giving them some indication of how you've managed to deliver that. So that's kind of one thing to think about is with your manager. Then obviously what you want to be thinking about doing is also using any channels in the organization to stay engaged with your team and your peers, to show collaboration, to show that you're celebrating other people's achievements, to show kind of energy and ideas. So whether that's Slack or Teams or Messenger or WhatsApp, whatever it might be that your organization or your team uses, making sure you are making time just to engage with what's going on in those things and contributing to them. So that's another way of kind of being visible. Obviously, we've got the very obvious thing that when you are on a Zoom call, that you have your camera on and you have thought about your contribution. So you're not just going to sit in that meeting with your camera on, you're actually going to be contributing and showing engagement through asking good questions or sharing your opinion, to make sure that when that camera's turned off, when the meeting's finished, people remember that you were there. And you can also, it's a small thing, but think about what you wear on those Zoom calls or Teams calls. So obviously, if you're wearing something bright, people are going to remember you more, particularly if it's a mixed, some people are in the office, some people are on the call. You want to be able to kind of stand out and for people to remember, oh yeah, Sarah was on that call. Not that I'm demonstrating it today because I'm not wearing anything bright. So what we also want to be thinking about is your response times as well. So if you're doing a lot of connecting with your team through written communication, then responding quickly and efficiently to colleagues, requests or information sharing or ideas, and also communicating when you're contactable and when you're not, because they can't see you across the desk that you're in a meeting. So letting your team know when you're contactable can also be a way of letting people know what you're up to as well. And then thinking about who you want to get to know outside your team and your boss, and being really intentional about maybe looking for opportunities to do some cross-team or cross-department working, being open to opportunities that allow you to participate in things that are connected to your job but might not be your actual job. So for example, if your organization runs lunch and learns, it might be that you're going to volunteer every quarter to do a lunch and learn on a particular topic. Now you don't want to overload yourself, but it's just thinking about how can you be visible in the wider organization as well as within your team, and looking for opportunities to do that. So those are some general ideas around how you can stay visible in your team and your organization. But in parallel to that, you can be thinking about your visibility in your industry. And so LinkedIn is a great way to comment, to share your opinions, to share information, share articles, to learn from others. So you might also want to think about having a visibility strategy around LinkedIn to build your credibility in your field, in your expertise, that will also hopefully be visible to your peers, to your manager as well, to show that you're not just committed and engaged with your internal environment, you're also committed and engaged with your external environment. So the kind of distilling it down really is about being clear about who you need to be visible to. It's about making a plan to show your engagement, show your commitment, and show your enthusiasm through the different channels that are available to you, to not, I suppose, shy away from putting yourself forward for opportunities where you can be seen by the wider team, the wider organisation, and thinking about your external visibility, which will also be visible in your organisation as well. Now, there's definitely lots more you could do, but I didn't want to kind of overload you. So hopefully that's given you some ideas to think about. Am I doing this already? Am I being intentional about my visibility in my office environment? And if I'm in the office, am I spending that time in the office making sure that I am networking and connecting and engaging with people that I work with, rather than just sitting and getting on with my work and then going home? So I'd love to know your visibility challenges or any questions you've got about being visible in the office. But remember, there's lots of benefits to you of having an intentional visibility strategy for yourself to bring you more job satisfaction and engagement, but also position you for the kind of roles that you want. Just going to check if there are any other comments. So Mahedi, you're saying, how often should you engage to maintain a good working relationship, especially when you requested something in the past to be accounted for when new opportunities arise? Well, I hope I've answered the kind of how often, but I would say, there's no harm in reminding your manager what you've requested. So if you're looking for an opportunity to develop a particular skill and it hasn't materialized, then you do want to be reminding your manager of that, maybe coming up with some ideas about how you can do that internally, and just keeping it top of agenda with them so that you get that opportunity as soon as it becomes available, or it can be created in some way for you. And if your manager's got objections, or you can think about why they might have objections to you taking the time to develop that skill or have that opportunity, then thinking about how you can manage those objections can be a really great way of getting them to be able to say yes to you. So thinking, what do they need to be able to say yes to me? So hope that's been useful. I will be back next week at 12:15 on Wednesday, I promise. I can't remember the topic I'm working on next week, but I will be advertising it tomorrow on LinkedIn and also in the Facebook group. So I do look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much for joining me, and apologies again that it was later than planned. Okay, have a great week, and I'll see you next Wednesday.